Yes, this is a whiskey beer. It is not an actual whiskey. But if a beer is aged in a whiskey barrel for a year, I will go ahead and try it. It's not too bad. Something I wanted to talk about briefly was conversations I've had with friends where there's a plethora of examples throughout history, whether it's workers' rights movements, racial relations, government, religion, you name it. It tends to be that there's those in power have more at stake if they keep us fighting each other and working against each other than they do working together. And there was a section of this book that I just wanted to read real quick that made me think about it, and then I was going to give some thoughts. No, this is not sponsored. I know I've talked about this book a few times. It just happened to be one of those books that I come across, and I happen to take some stuff out of that I really liked. So this is just a brief section that I'm going to read. Shockingly as it may seem, and despite our raw political hostilities, we privately share a majority of salient values. In a 2021 study conducted by Populous revealed that by nearly every measure, most of us share the same hopes and priorities for our own lives and the country as a whole. Americans across the political spectrum privately agree that individual rights, high-quality health care, leadership, accountability, neighborhood safety, an unbiased criminal justice system, and equality are all important for themselves personally and for the future of America. We also share the same conception of fairness and want the same things from our institutions, from work and education to health care and criminal justice. Indeed, out of the top 20 ranked aspirational values, we privately agree on 15, including respect for one another, creating a thriving middle class, developing a modern infrastructure, and ensuring equal opportunity for all. Of course, keeping things more polarized suits both politicians and the media, and so they emphasize our differences and cloud reality, making it difficult for us to recognize how much we actually agree. So this kind of confirms, and hopefully it's not confirmation bias, but this kind of confirms some thoughts that I've oft held with friends for quite a while, where those in power, again, whether it's a government, whether it's a corporation, whether it's movements, workers' rights movements, racial relations, you name it, it seems to be that there's more of a desire for certain parties to have us fight against each other, the whole us versus them. If you're not with us, you're against us mentality. And if you look at politics and over the last, and even I would say racial relations over the last couple of years, there does seem to be a lot of us versus them mentality. And, one can't help wonder if there are certain motivating actors out there that are trying to continue to push that agenda and have us focus more on what we don't have in common than what we do have in common. Something that I'm trying to do with this channel is bring a commonality to things that we like, whiskey, games, and nerd stuff. And over the years, I've had friends and still have friends of all varieties on the political spectrum and thoughts and religious philosophies, or just general life philosophies. Let me go ahead and take another sip. And one of the things that always brought us together is what we like. We like whiskey, we like games, we like nerd stuff. And we know we're not going to agree on everything, but what we choose to do, and I do think it's a choice, we choose to focus more on what we agree on than what we disagree on. And yes, there's going to be some fundamental things that you believe that are, core values to your belief system. And I'm not saying that, you need to go out there and be best friends with people who have a fundamental disbelief or an opposite belief of what you do on a particular issue, if it's that important to you. What I am suggesting is that if we focus more on what we do agree on, if we focus more on what brings us together, then I do believe it gives us the opportunity to be more open and discuss and, give people the benefit of the doubt. If you kind of walk into a situation where you give somebody the benefit of the doubt that they're coming at things with the best of intentions, coming out with an open mind, ideally that conversation is going to go in a better direction. And if you are with friends and families, we know that there's those wedge issues that, again, I do think there's actors out there that try to create more of a wedge than there really is on some issues, that if we focus when we're with our friends and family more on the things that we agree on, maybe things can just be more enjoyable for all around. I'm not saying we don't talk about important issues. I'm not saying that, we don't plant our flag on a particular belief that we have. What I am saying is maybe focusing on those things that we do agree on, maybe focusing on those things that bring us together, creates more of a us and not an us versus them system. And then when we do talk about things that we don't always agree on, maybe there's a more friendly conversation. Maybe it doesn't need to be an us versus them. Maybe there's can we meet somewhere in the middle? Or maybe we don't need to meet in the middle. There's some issues where, it's not a right or a wrong. It's just, you believe this, I believe that. Obviously there's exceptions to things where when you're talking about equality and fundamental human rights. But, I do think there's enough out there where if we focus on what we agree on and not so much on what we disagree on, maybe we can have a little bit more time to enjoy whiskey, games, and nerd stuff with our friends. And, I found over the years that a friend is more likely to listen to an idea that they might not otherwise have entertained, if it's coming from a friend, if it's coming from a place of respect, if it's coming from a place of best intentions. And if you're, equally willing to listen to what they have to say, and why you believe what you do, they tend to, be more receptive to what you have to say and listen to what you believe and why. So I am curious about that. If other people have had similar thoughts on that, does anybody have examples out there, specific examples of where you think the media, organized religion or religions or workers' right, different type of institutions, whether it's, government or even just examples of the workers' right movement. I'm often think about, I want to say it's called Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, where, there was always an us versus them when immigrants would come in through New York. I believe there's a couple sections in there where, immigrants from different countries would come in and they always create an us versus them scenario. I believe it was Upton Sinclair's The Jungle that was kind of one of the talking points in the book. It's been probably a decade since I've read that book. I'll have to pull it out and read it again. But I would like to hear everybody's thoughts, comments. I know I've talked about this book a few times. No, I don't know who he is. No, I don't have any stake in this book. Again, it was just one of those things I found interesting and something that I thought was easy to slip in. Videos of just nerdy stuff. Also curious to see if anybody's tried this particular beer, or if anybody has any recommendations for beer aged in a whiskey barrels. I know there's a wine out there that I've tried that was aged in a whiskey barrel that I found pretty interesting, but I'm always willing to try different things. So if there's anything out there, whether it be it wine, beer, or even some whiskeys that I haven't yet talked about, would love to hear what people's thoughts are. Would love to hear your comments and suggestions on other books out there that I should read that could kind of use to just, talk in between the various stuff that I talk about on this, whether it's Magic the Gathering, D&D, different games that I'm trying. You'll see that I often play a lot of solo games. It just happens to be where I travel. So when I'm out by myself, I always like to pull out those games, kind of pass the time. Again, I do really appreciate everybody who takes the time to watch these. As everybody sees, I do fumble over my words at times, but I just turn on the thing and record, and just what happens, happens. One of these days, I'll just start live streaming these, and that'll definitely be fun. Again, thank you. If you do like this, please like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, cheers.